this is an all levels class for anybody actually could join. All you're going to need is an LSAT Demon free account. If you don't already have one of those, you definitely need to go to lsatdemon.com and sign up for a free account. If you don't have that account, you're not going to be able to look at the questions that we're going to do in today's session. Should take you 30 seconds to sign up. Don't see any reason why everybody can't do that if you would like to follow along. I've got two helpers here. I see Abigail and I see Claire. Hello, both of you.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Abigail and Claire are both tutors with LSAT Demon and are available if you want to ask private questions in the chat. You can always just message either of them directly and they'll help out as much as they can. You can also put public questions in the chat, or of course you can just unmute yourself and ask whatever question you want to ask anytime. It's an all levels class. We're going to cover a little bit of logical reasoning, a little bit of reading comp, a little bit of logic games. And we're going to start the same way I start all of my Tuesday and Thursday classes at LSAT Demon with just an open Q&A. So what have you been working on, and what are you hoping to get out of today's class? Somebody talk to me, please.
I've just raised her hand.
Oh,
Just
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Carla, go ahead.
Hi. This is my first time logging on with you guys. I just started studying, thank you, for the LSAT about 3 weeks ago. So I'm very, very new. I currently have a tutor, not sure that style is for me. I've watched a bunch of free YouTube videos from some of your instructors that really resonated with me. So I'm just joining today to see if this is right for me.
Cool. Yeah. Welcome. We're not for, well, I was going to say we're not for everybody, but we have enough different teachers that I think we actually are for everybody.
Right.
I am not for everybody. I have been told that my style is very direct, and that's what you're going to get with me. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm going to use words like bullshit, and I'm going to tell it like it is. I feel that my primary responsibility as a teacher is to just be honest with you at all times. If I'm not honest with you, then why would you believe me, right? So I'm going to be as straightforward and sometimes blunt as I need to be in order to get my point across. That's my style. If you ever end up with Abigail or Claire, I think you'll find a lot of a more softer touch. Although I'm trying to coach them out of it. I'm trying to get them to, be tough with y'all. Anyway, welcome, Marla. Anybody else have a question, comment?
I have a question. Hi, I'm Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
How personalized can you guys get with people and their study plans and stuff like that through this program?
Extremely. In fact, we don't actually publish any study plans because we think that scripted study plans are bogus. You're welcome to ask any question at any time in any of our classes, and we will absolutely work with you to guide you to create a schedule that's going to work for you. For most people, I'm only going to be looking 1 week out though. I'm not going to work on a 3-month plan, because 2 weeks from now, your situation will be different. Presumably, your situation will be different 2 weeks from now. If it's the same, then you don't seem to be making any progress. So we would take it, a week at a time. And the main thing that I'm looking for you to do, Nicole, is to start with 1 high quality hour every single day and then build from there. So, and then it's on you, right? You're the one that knows your schedule. I don't know what time you set your alarm for in the morning, and I don't know what time you go to bed, and I don't know what your work and school and family and pets are like, and so you're gonna have to guide yourself to find the time in your schedule to do it. But it's basically 1 hour a day minimum. If you can give me an hour a day, high quality, 1 hour a day, I know you're going to be making progress. And so I would start with that, and then I would expand from there building on your weaknesses, basically working more on your weaknesses. I wrote a couple of recent columns about that. I hope Abigail and Claire, you can dig up those recent newsletters, because I think that they are very useful for people who are trying to create their own schedule. But yes, you can email help@LSAT Demon anytime, and you can talk to me, Claire, Abigail, our other 10 awesome teachers anytime at any of our events. For those of you who are like kind of brand new with LSAT Demon, we offer live classes 7 days a week, multiple live classes 7 days a week, for you to pick and choose from and make your own schedule. But any of our teachers can help you make decisions about, where you should be spending the bulk of your time.
Awesome, thank you. And Claire, I think I'm talking to you later today, so I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I'm in a public facility, so I apologize for background noise. I just started studying April 1st, so I'm very, very new, and I'd like to try and take the flex in June. I actually already registered for it, so I'm sure that might be foolish from your recommendation, but because that's what I've done so far, what would you recommend the amount of time that I study a day, like 3 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours? I'm a pretty focused, driven person, so my attention span wouldn't be an issue.
Start with one high quality hour every day and expand from there. Maybe you add on a couple of classes. Maybe you do a full test once per week. Every weekend we offer a full proctored practice test. Those might be good for you if you have extra time to invest. The LSAT Demons drilling feature is the absolute best way to prepare for the LSAT, full stop. If you just drill in the Demon, you will get a bunch of them right, which is great. And then the Demon will start giving you some harder ones, and then you're going to make some mistakes. And then you've got videos and written explanation right there in the Demon, so that you can immediately get that feedback to correct whatever mistakes you're making. But I don't know how many hours, and I also don't know how long it's going to take you, Sarah. Everybody's different.
This
and
is the guy, right?
You totally might be able to you totally might be able to get fully prepped in 2 months. Some people do. Some people take 2 years. I have no idea who's who. So all I would say is take it, one day at a time, work hard. And the most important thing you can do is ask questions specifically about shit you don't understand. You have to humble yourself. You have to be willing to say, hey, this one right here, I don't get it. If you can say that, then we can help you. And I would just take it one day at a time and do as much of that as possible. I see 2 hands up. Raphael?
Yes, how you doing, Nathan?
Hey, good.
I've been using your software for, I'll say, about 2 weeks now. I appreciate the help. It's definitely working. But what I am realizing is that on logic games, the rules are changing. In other words, I guess the question is, how do you make sure that, considering the time, that you're comprehending just how precise the rules are? If that makes any sense.
The test is always a reading comprehension test, right? One of the 3 sections is called reading comprehension.
Right.
Very obvious what we're supposed to do there. We're supposed to read, comprehend, ask questions about answer questions about what we read.
Right.
But the logic games too is a test of your ability to understand what you have read. Mm-hmm. There's not a degree, Raphael. It's not a degree of specificity. Mm-hmm. Every rule, and really just every word on the page of every single LSAT, every word means exactly what it means, no more and no less. The rules on the LSAT are they are clear if you take the time to make them clear.
That comes with familiarity, I'm guessing, right? You just have to become familiar with what they're throwing at you occasionally.
And just generally being more careful.
Right.
I mean, the one thing I can guarantee all of you, if you're not currently scoring what you want to score, you're not being careful enough. I guarantee it. Y'all went to college where some of you went to better colleges and some of you went to shittier colleges. Or even if you're at a good college, you can have a major that's not very demanding, or you can have a major that actually is demanding.
Right.
But you guys have been trained to read 500 pages, skim the surface, and like, you kind of got some of it. That's not the game on the LSAT. The people who do the best on the LSAT are actually computer programmers or like electrical engineers. And the reason why those folks tend to do so well on the LSAT is that they're used to lines of computer code. Legal writing is computer code. Legal writing is technical writing, and the LSAT is always testing your ability to read every single line, every single word very carefully and understand exactly what it means, no more and no less.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. That's not just advice for Raphael, that is advice for absolutely everyone. I can't tell you, I charge a lot of money for private tutoring, okay? Like an absurd amount of money for one-on-one tutoring. And I can't tell you how much of that private tutoring time is devoted to me going, can you read that? Will you read that again, please? Nope. Read it again. Because the words mean what they mean, but y'all just miss questions because you just don't read the words on the page. And that's like my universal advice. I guarantee that you make mistakes because you either don't read the passage well enough, or you don't read the question well enough, or you don't read the right answer well enough, or you don't read the wrong answer that you end up picking well enough.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. Okay, you've got a couple hands up. Let's go. I think Asta, I think you had your hand up first.
Yes, Nathan. How are you doing?
Good. How'd I do on Asta?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
No. How'd I do on the pronunciation?
Oh, it's good. It's spot on.
Excellent. Okay. What can I do for you?
Actually, Nathan, I have been studying for the LSAT from December, and one of the things is that I'm able to get a lot of the questions right when I'm doing the drills, but when it comes to taking the proctored exam, just somehow or the other, I'm not able to translate the amount that I get right in the drills or in the timed sections to the proctored exam. And also, like, in terms of, is there a way to make the mind focus for a long period of time on these questions? Because it's easier to focus on the questions when it's like a timed section or just one section a day. But when it comes to the whole exam, like, it's very difficult to comprehend the same words with the same
Asta,
amount of focus.
I'm hearing too many excuses. Sorry, this is the blunt thing that I was warning you guys about at the top of the show. You're making too many excuses for not reading carefully enough. Okay. You should approach your time sections the same way you approach your practice tests, the same way you approach your drilling. You should read carefully. You should understand what you're reading. You should answer questions feeling good about the right answer and having eliminated the wrong answers. Every mistake you make, Asta, and I don't care if it's on drilling or time sections or on full tests, every mistake you made, every question you missed required you to not pick the correct answer, which is a mistake. Why didn't you pick the right answer? Why didn't you pick the one that answers the question? You also picked a wrong answer. That answer is objectively wrong. It does not answer the question. So you had to make 2 mistakes for every single question you missed. And to be perfectly frank, you're just not acting like a lawyer. You're just not being careful. You're being sloppy. And I don't like really tolerate any other excuses ever. It's just like what I really want to talk about is the individual questions that you've missed And I want to get as close as possible to the true cause of your underperformance, which is you're not reading carefully enough and you're not picking the one answer that actually answers the question. Now, sometimes people do weird shit on timed sections. Like, for example, if you're trying to finish the section, that's a mistake. Nobody should be trying to finish the section. You should be answering one question at a time. If you miss number 5, I don't give a shit if you make it to number 25, because you're just making casual mistakes in your rush to finish the section. Almost everybody, this is another bit of universal advice, I would say 99% of you will do better on your practice sections and better on your practice tests if you just give up entirely on the idea of finishing the sections. You're doing sloppy work. We don't get paid for sloppy work. So you got to be a little bit, I think, maybe tougher with yourself, Asta, and you kind of got to like confront your own mortality in a way. It's like, hey, you didn't get that one right, but if I just sat there and yelled at you and made you reread it, you would, almost always. And so you have to take it more seriously while you're doing your timed practice, because you're going to take it seriously on your actual test. And if for the people who actually take this advice on board, I'm used to people ignoring me, but for the people who actually take this advice on board, they learn how easy the test is. Everything starts to make perfect sense to them. And when you reach that point where you can just answer, the first 10 in a row on any section perfectly, you start to realize that 11 through 15 aren't that bad either. And 16 through 20 aren't that bad either, if you take the time to really focus and feel good about your answers before you move on to the next question. Hope that at least touched your question there, Asta. Ron, what's up?
Hey, Nathan. I don't have confidence to not use my pen during LR and RC. I just wanted to ask, should you not use your pen at all during either section?
Yes.
For the most part. Okay, that was it.
I never write anything down. There's not that many words on the page. I definitely draw a diagram. I use pictures to help solve the logic games. But on logical reasoning and reading comprehension, if you can't answer it in your head, you're not going to help yourself by writing it on the page. Okay. I look over people's shoulder. I see them like diagramming a logical reasoning question. I see them like diagramming it out, and I look and it's almost always like they've diagrammed it backward anyway. So it's the case that if you can't do it in your head, I don't think you can do it on the page anyway. Okay. If you can do it in your head, then it's faster to do it in your head. So yeah, logical reasoning and reading comprehension, I'm never writing anything down. Is it Takelat?
Close, no cigar. Takilat, how are you?
Hello.
Hi. So I am realizing that logic games is my weakness and my problem. Now that I'm answering the questions, but I go into the problem and I'm actually looking at where I'm making my mistake is in the inferences, being able to inference and wondering what goes where. When I use the worlds, it's not that I don't know when to use the worlds, it's how I'm diagramming the worlds and using that skill.
Sorry, I think you're dropping out. I'm sorry, your internet is too bad for a verbal question. Can you please put that in the chat?
Sure.
Oh, Shara can hear her fine. Maybe it's me, my bad. Oh, everybody can hear you. Okay, let's try one more time. Must have been on my end. What, you're having problems making inferences on logic games?
Yes, I do the worlds. Like I can tell which ones.
Hey, Claire, Abigail, can you answer this question? I'm going to see what's going on here. I've got some sort of a problem.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you hear me, Claire?
Yeah, I can.
Clearly?
Yes.
Every word?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you heard what I asked?
Unfortunately, it was kind of interjecting. So if you could repeat it, I'll be happy to help.
Okay, so with the logic games, my problem is making that inference once I set up the diagram. And sometimes even after setting up the diagram with exactly what the rules are saying, I plug in all of my elements into the diagram and then do my if questions.
Mhm.
And then once I do the if questions, there are like other questions that's, asking me to make an inference, and that's where I get lost. Like I get totally lost. I don't know what happens, but I notice when I go back to check my answers, the types of questions I'm getting wrong are the inference questions.
So what that probably sounds like to me, and Abigail, feel free to jump in if you have any kind of prescription, but in my head, it kind of just sounds like you're not identifying that you are making inferences, because if you truly are baking in these rules into your worlds and you're applying them and understanding them in that way that you need to in order to really get those if questions and must be true, could be true kinds of things right, you do need to be understanding the relationship between these rules. So I think you might be actually tripping yourself up in almost like in a self-fulfilling prophecy way, thinking that, oh, now I don't think I made any inferences. Well, the inferences that you actually did make were being made in the process of filling out that world. So I think that you might actually be right there, and you just need to have one extra step forward to say, oh, I recognize that what I did was I combined these two rules that didn't at face value when they list them out relate to one another, but because they have shared variables, hey, they can be combined. That's an inference.
But I've even taken Nathan's suggestion. I watched one of his videos and he made the suggestion of combining, the first rule or the second rule, or making the combination of those rules and then moving forward. And I don't know. I'm frustrated because I'm like, why am I not getting my inferences right? Even after I set up my diagram, like I'm annoyed.
Yeah, I understand that frustration. There also might be a bit of maybe if you aren't at that place yet to feel like you are making inferences, it might be a matter of actually feeling confident in the way that you're setting them up. Because if you aren't fully satisfied with like, oh, I'm understanding what I'm even looking at right now, whether I wrote it on my page or watching a recording of someone else, I'm not going to feel confident going forward. So in reviewing it, I used to watch the recordings of Nathan's, then I would watch Ben's to see, do they do it differently? Does one way feel more natural to me? Because there are different ways to, not to be morbid, but to skin a cat. So that way that you're working with now might not be sinking in for you. And that's why it feels like an uphill battle.
Let me try to dive in here. What's an inference?
An inference is like, say, for example, it says, element M cannot be in, the fifth slot. And I have to infer that there's a rule that says M has to come before, F, or a rule that says.
No, it's so much simpler than you're making it out to be. Listen, if there's a rule that says M has to come before F, where can F definitely not go?
After M.
No, the rule is M
again?
before F. The rule is M before F.
Mm-hmm.
Where can F definitely not go?
After M. You said M before F.
Yeah. So where can F not go? If M has to go before F can go, there's one spot that F can't go.
And that's before M.
Yeah, but first.
Okay.
First. That's the one spot that F clearly can't go. Where's the one spot that M can't go? Last. M has to go before F. Therefore, F can't go first and M can't go last.
Yeah.
Right? I know you're stressed out. I can tell you're stressed out because I'm yelling at you, but
No, I don't mind. I want to, I'm learning, and I
promise you, an inference, as Abigail pointed out in the chat, an inference is just something that must be true. When they say M has to go before F, we can infer that F can't go first and M can't go last. Those are things that must be true. We can infer those things from the rule M before F. Your problem is not with inferences, and your problem certainly isn't with inference questions. To the extent that inference questions are even a thing, all that is which one of these must be true. That's all inference means, must be true. Okay, and you're getting stressed out because you're missing some of the baby steps, but I promise that no matter how grand of a solution I come up with for any logic game, it's all just a series of baby steps. Keep practicing, focus on the easy stuff, watch videos, watch like 1 minute of the video and then pause it and then try it on your own. Unpause it when you get stuck, repeat that process and ask us lots of questions, but I need you to ask specific questions. Okay, so I'm having problems with inferences far too broad. This question right here, that's the question that you need to be asking. All right, one more question, and then we're going to move on to our scheduled content for today. Sahara, what's up?
Yeah, hi, Nathan.
Hi.
Such a huge fan of yours and your teachings, firstly.
Thank you.
A question regarding time management skills.
Yeah.
And so I found myself rushing through passages, just reading through just to get through the end and answer questions. So what are some important tactics that you would suggest?
Stop doing that.
Okay.
I mean, like, stop it. The passage is a collection of all of the right answers. You want to answer the questions correctly, don't you?
Yes.
You're not going to do that by rushing through the passage. It's just, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, it's the speed, because the concern, of course, time is ticking away, and you always want to ensure all answers or all questions are being answered.
That's a mistake. I know what your mistake is, and I was just yelling about this 10 minutes ago. Stop trying to finish. That's your problem. You're racing to finish, so you're skimming the surface. Then you get to the questions, shocker, you don't know the answer. Well, that's because you didn't read the damn passage well enough in the first place. Read it better. Act like a lawyer. Be careful. Actually understand shit you read. Don't just read it and go, oh, that's confusing, and keep reading. If you read it and it's confusing, read it again immediately at the very top of the passage. If you don't understand the first couple sentences, how the hell do you think you're going to understand the rest of it?
Right.
Okay. You got to have like higher standards for your understanding. And this, there is a bit of ego involved. I think that one of the reasons why I've always been good at reading comp and I've always been good at logical reasoning is that I have enough ego to expect that I'm going to understand shit that I read. When I read something and it doesn't make sense, I read it again, because I expect to understand it. If you're used to skimming the surface and not really understanding what you read, like maybe your whole college career, you were just practicing poor reading comprehension technique. And you got to flip that. You got to start taking it more seriously. And I just guarantee you're not going to be successful if you keep trying to finish the sections. but that ain't it.
Okay.
We've got Carl, who works for us, teaches classes at LSAT Demon and does one-on-one tutoring. Carl scored 179 on the official LSAT and did not finish his reading comprehension. Now, he almost finished, but he got 179 without answering all of the questions.
Damn. Yeah.
Well, that's because, like a lawyer, he did the work. He actually did the work. That's the thing that everybody misses. When you blindly rush to finish every section, you're not actually doing it. When you've missed a question, you didn't do the question. You didn't solve it. You skimmed the surface. You looked at the answer choices. But probably this one could work. That's not doing the work of a lawyer. Lawyers get it right. So we all have to slow down and focus on accuracy only, never speed. The magic of this is that if you actually read it and actually understand it, you're going to start to see how it's really easier than you thought it was. You try to take shortcuts and you try to skim the surface, and all you're doing is making it harder for yourself. Take the time to really understand it, and you're more often than not, you're going to be like, oh yeah, well, that's the answer, because obviously, I mean, that's what it said. So that's the answer. And it turns out that you move on to the next question pretty efficiently, because the right answers look right and the wrong answers look wrong, because you're actually understanding what you're reading. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks everybody for being here. I know I'm a lot, and I'm sorry for being a lot, but I'm only like this because I know that you guys can get it if you just start acting like lawyers. If you just take it more seriously, you're going to be just fine. Let's move on to our scheduled content. We have a couple of easier logical reasoning questions. All of you should get both of these questions right if you're just careful enough with it. So the first one of these easier logical reasoning questions is going to be coming at you in the chat. There it is. Thank you, Claire. Most of you are probably going to be using the 1.0 link. 2.0 link is for people who are helping us test out our new version of LSAT Demon. Good luck on that question. We're going to give you a survey so you can let me know which answer choices you thought were tempting or worthy of consideration. As soon as I get roughly half of you filling out the survey, I'll launch into my explanation. Thanks. Looks like most of you nailed it. That's great. Test 65, section 4, number 3, a travel industry consultant says that several airlines are increasing elbow room and leg room in business class because surveys show that business travelers value additional space more than, say, better meals. All right, so they're picking, fancy business class people, they're picking between, apparently, they would prefer the extra space. The airplane food is trash anyway. I get it. Okay. But it says airlines are over concerned about the comfort of passengers flying on business. Wait, what now? I mean, these are the people who are paying like 500% as much as people who are traveling in coach. What do you mean they're unconcerned? They're over concerned with their comfort? Can't they go to another airline? So that sounds like a conclusion. I'm expecting evidence for that. You know, it's like they're attacking, right? They're attacking these airlines. What's your grounds for attacking these airlines? It says they should instead focus on the comfort of leisure travelers because those travelers purchase 80% of all airline tickets, and anyone with half a brain, I'm sorry, this is 2021. We all know that business travel is expensive as shit, and we can probably assume that if leisure travelers are buying 80% of their airline tickets, they're probably paying a lot less for those tickets. Leisure travelers on vacation, they can book it 2 months in advance or a year in advance, and they can bargain shop for fares. And we all know that they're flying coach. If we've got two groups, business travelers with their extra legroom and whatnot, and leisure travelers, it's fair to assume that the leisure travelers are probably in coach and buying 80% of the tickets. Who cares? Because it could be that 70% of the revenue comes from the business travelers. That's a rational, common sense objection to this argument. Which one of the following, if true, most weakens the reasoning in the travel industry consultant's argument? Did I predict the answer? I bet I did. It's a common sense reaction to this argument. Business class costs more. If I find that in the answer choices, you know, which one? Now, it's okay if you don't know that, although I think most people do. If you don't know that, that's all right, because if it's there in the answer choices, the question says, which one of the following, if true, most weakens the reasoning in the argument? If there's an answer that says business class costs 10 times as much as leisure travel, you know, the average leisure ticket, that's going to be the answer. Because if that's true, this travel industry consultant looks dumb. A, business travelers often make travel decisions based on whether they feel a given airline values their business. Yeah, but that doesn't even respond to this argument. I mean, what they just said 80% of all travelers are leisure travelers. And A is just like, well, business travelers care if you care about their business. And it's not a very good attack, especially not when we have such a glaring weakness in the argument, which is what if business travelers are responsible for more of the revenue? B says some airlines have indicated that they will undertake alterations in seating space throughout the entire passenger area of their planes in the near future. How does that help to support the idea that airlines are over concerned about the comfort of passengers flying on business? If 80% of the people on the plane are leisure travelers anyway, B doesn't make it look like we're over, you know, giving too many benefits to the business travelers. I don't see B as a, B seems to, well, let me come back to it. I think once we see the correct answer, it's going to be just very obvious. C, sleeping in comfort during long flights is not the primary concern of leisure travelers. Where were long flights even part of this argument? What does that do? Do business travelers take longer flights? Do leisure travelers take longer flights? I don't know. I don't see how that connects to the argument. D says a far greater proportion of an airline's revenues is derived from business travelers than from leisure travelers, which I predicted almost verbatim. I'm not trying to show off. I'm trying to convince you that this test is actually super easy. Looks like 80% of you got this one right. So hopefully, how of those, if you got it right, did you predict the answer? See a few hands, see some nodding. Good, great. That's what we're going for, man. If we read it more carefully in the first place and we think about it before we go into these answer choices, right? Hold the answer choices at arm's length. Try to make a good prediction. How would you commonsensically attack this argument? And it looks like about half of you just predicted, oh, wait a second, business travelers might be responsible for more of the revenue. That's a great weakener. If D is true, it destroys this argument. So the answer here is going to be D. E says most leisure travelers buy airline tickets only when fares are discounted. That actually, what? Discounts. Discounts don't have anything to do with the absolute price you're paying, right? I mean, it could be like a law school, for example, which has a nominal tuition of $65,000 per year and then gives everybody a discount. You're still you could get a $20,000 discount and still be brutally overpaying for law school. So I don't know what they're being discounted from, so who cares? The answer here is D, because if D is true, this travel industry consultant is going to really need to reconsider their argument. If business travelers are responsible for more of the revenue, then maybe they're not over concerned about the comfort of business travelers. All right, let's move on. One more easier LR. There it is. Thank you. Test 65, section 4, number 4, Gabby says, in school, children should be allowed fully to follow their own interests, supported by experienced teachers who offer minimal guidance. Really? It's important that kids learn how to add and subtract. We could definitely talk about whether algebra 2 is of any practical use to most people. I mean, I think it's pretty clearly not, actually. That you know how to solve a quadratic equation or whatever is probably not really that important, but the ability to add and subtract and multiply and divide is necessary to function in the world. And I don't think that's the interest of most children. So I'm already very resistant to Gabby's position here, which is good. My job is to disagree. Gabby goes on and says, well, this enables them to be most successful in their adult lives. I say, no, not if they don't know how to read. I'm sorry. Like if their interest is reading, I agree, actually. If their interest is reading, I would just put them in a room with books and say, go, do it. You don't need me. Read. Great. Perfect. My job is done. But if their interest is Pokemon, nothing wrong with Pokemon, but they might need to be redirected into some things that will, I don't see how their own interests is going to enable them to be successful in their adult lives. Presumably they're going to need a job and have a mortgage and save for their kids' college. And there's certain things that they need to know that might not be in their interests, their own interests on day one of school. Logan says, I disagree. School children should acquire the fundamental knowledge necessary for future success. Okay, that's my position. And they learn such fundamentals only through disciplined, systematic instruction from accredited teachers. Okay, I kind of want to agree with Logan, but then at the end there, I feel like Logan maybe goes a little bit too far. It is certainly possible that you can learn extremely valuable skills outside of the classroom. I'll give you an example. I collected baseball cards when I was a kid. I spent a shit ton of time organizing and sorting my baseball cards and, checking their prices in the Beckett guide to prices. And I actually learned quite a lot there without any teacher because I was just doing stuff. Anyway, it says Gabby's and Logan's comments provide most support for the claim that they disagree about which one of the following. On this type of a question, I always, again, hold the answer choices at arm's length. Your problem, if you struggle, is you go into the answer choices way too quickly, hoping that the answer choices are going to explain it to you. They're not. 4 out of 5 answer choices are wrong. They're meant to distract you and confuse you and waste your time. So we resist the answer choices. And first we ask, are they arguing about evidence or are they arguing about conclusions or are they arguing about both evidence and conclusions? Here, I think the answer is both. They're certainly arguing about their conclusions. Gabby says in school, children should be allowed fully to follow their own interests, supported by teachers who offer minimal guidance. Logan says, no way. They need this fundamental knowledge. And the only way they're going to get that is by disciplined, systematic instruction from accredited teachers. So Gabby's conclusion is like less teaching. And Logan's conclusion is no, they need to be taught all the time. Otherwise they aren't learning anything. Are they also arguing about evidence? I think so. Now, Gabby's only evidence is this enables them to be most successful in their adult lives, which is very weak. It's almost like she's just it's not really restating her conclusion, but there's not much there. Well, what do you mean most successful in their adult lives? Logan presents new information that I think counters that point. Logan says, no, school children, there is fundamental knowledge that is necessary for future success. And they can only get that fundamental knowledge necessary for their future success from teachers. And so I think they are arguing about both their evidence and their conclusion here. Heading into the answer choices, I'd be looking for something that says something about you got to have teaching all the time in order for kids to be successful, because Gabby clearly says no to that and Logan clearly says yes to that. A, are they arguing about the way in which school children best acquire fundamental knowledge? That cannot be the answer. I see that over 10% of you thought that was a credible answer. It's not. The problem with A is that Gabby never even acknowledged the existence of fundamental knowledge. if only one of the speakers talked about that answer, then it is not the answer for either an agree or a disagree question. I need evidence on the page that Gabby would, have a different opinion about A. Gabby might have no opinion about A. And in that case, we can't pick it. B says the extent to which teachers should direct school children's education. Absolutely. Gabby wants minimal guidance from teachers. Logan wants disciplined, systematic instruction, which is the opposite of minimal guidance. So they are clearly arguing about B, and that's the answer. C says the importance of having qualified teachers involved in school children's education. I think they actually agree. Gabby says you need experience. That's a form of qualification. Logan says you need accreditation, which is also a form of qualification. They both seem to agree that we need qualified teachers involved in education. We're looking for something that they disagree on. D, the sort of school environment that most fosters children's creativity. Neither of them even mentioned creativity. That's, I think, the worst answer. And none of you picked it. Good. E says the extent to which school children are interested in fundamental academic subjects. Again, Gabby didn't talk about fundamental subjects. Where's your evidence that Gabby either agrees or disagrees with E? I mean, she has to say yes or no to E, and then Logan has to say no or yes to E in order to make it the right answer. But because we can't put Gabby on a position for E, you know what? Not even that. Furthermore, we can't put Logan on a position on E either. Logan says that there is fundamental knowledge that children need to acquire, but Logan doesn't talk about children's interests. The answer here is B, because Gabby said minimal direction, and Logan wants disciplined, systematic direction. They're clearly arguing about that point, so the answer is B. All right, let's move on to reading comprehension. I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little bit because I'm definitely behind schedule here. My bad. Reading comp is in the chat. Great. Okay. We call this story time because, like, boy, if there's a straightforward section of the LSAT, it's reading comp. You struggle with reading comp because you don't read it carefully enough. You don't comprehend it because you didn't read it carefully enough. Then the questions are impossible. So I'm going to read the passage to you, and then I'm going to turn you loose on the questions. Hopefully, with a more solid understanding of the passage, you're going to start to realize that these questions are actually pretty straightforward most of the time. It's test 65, passage 4, story time. As part of an international effort to address environmental problems resulting from agricultural overproduction, hundreds of thousands of acres of surplus farmland throughout Europe will be taken out of production in coming years. Okay, I didn't know that this problem existed. I thought that there were starving people in the world. Now I'm learning, and by the way, they're not testing your knowledge of these issues. They're testing your ability to learn about these issues. That's what reading is. We learn shit. So I read that and I go, oh, wow. Environmental problems resulting from agricultural overproduction, you say? Huh, okay, didn't know those existed. Don't know what they are either. I can imagine pollution or too much, exhaust from tractors or whatever it is. But apparently there's surplus farmland in Europe, and thousands of acres are going to be taken out of production in coming years. Okay, got it. What else? Restoring a natural balance of flora to this land will be difficult, however, because the nutrients in soil that has been in constant agricultural use are depleted. That stands to reason. I can certainly see how if you just grew corn on the same plot of land for 200 years, there might not be shit left there And so getting it back to, nature is going to be hard. Moreover, much of this land has been heavily fertilized, and when such land is left unplanted, problem weeds like thistles often proliferate, preventing many native plants from establishing themselves. Okay, so we got a double-edged sword here. The soil has been depleted of nutrients. It's also been flooded with artificial fertilizer. So if we stop growing the corn, we get this invasive thistle for whatever reason. Maybe it likes artificial fertilizer, but it's not a native plant, and it just goes nuts in this that's a perfect spot for thistle. It's just not a perfect spot for the native stuff that we really want to come back. While the quickest way to restore heavily fertilized land is to remove and replace the topsoil, this is impractical on a large scale, such as that of the European effort. That totally stands to reason. Thousands of acres, you're going to go in there and just skim, 3 feet of topsoil off of thousands of acres. And then where are you going to get the new, where are you going to get the replacement topsoil, and how much time and effort and money is all this going to take? I get it. That sounds impossible. And while it is generally believed that damaged ecological systems will restore themselves very gradually over time, a study underway in the Netherlands is investigating the possibility of artificially accelerating the processes through which nature slowly reestablishes plant diversity on previously farmed land. Okay, so as far as the nature will heal itself, yeah, I've watched post-apocalyptic movies. I've played The Last of Us. I understand that if humans leave, plants are going to regrow all over the city of Seattle, and eventually the buildings come crumbling down, and then over hundreds of years or thousands or eons or whatever, nature will restore itself automatically. I grant that. Apparently, they're now studying how can they make that happen faster. I'm at the end of the first paragraph, and now I'm expecting them that surely they're going to go into this Netherlands study, and they're going to tell me about how, I don't know whether it's going to work or not, but I'm interested to find out. Try to get interested in these passages if you can. You're going to have a much better time of it. I mean, you're going to have more fun if you can actually get into it. And it's also fun to get the answers right. So if you sit there with a bad attitude, I have kind of a bad attitude a lot of the time, but I'm not going to have a bad attitude as I'm reading this passage, because I know that my job is to understand it. And I actually am intrigued here. I would like to know about this, how would they do that if they wanted to rehabilitate some former farmland? Can they make nature regrow itself more quickly? In the study, a former cornfield was raked to get rid of corn stalks and weeds, then divided into 20 plots of roughly equal size. Control plots were replanted with corn or sown with nothing at all. The remaining plots were divided into 2 groups. Plots in one group were sown with a mixture of native grasses and herbs. Those in the other group received the same mixture of grasses and herbs together with clover and toad flax. Over 3 years, thistles have been forced out of the plots where the broadest variety of species was sown, and have also disappeared from mats of grass in the plots sown with fewer seed varieties. On the control plots that were left untouched, thistles have become dominant. So we have 4 different types of plots here. Plot 1, they just replanted corn, kind of like, well, we're not going to change anything. What if we just kept growing corn? Plot 2, they grew nothing at all. Both of those plots essentially failed. The thistles took over the corn, the thistles took over the bare dirt. But in the plots where they planted native, native stuff, grasses and herbs, those did well. At least on the grassy parts, the thistles started to go away. And in the plots where they planted more stuff like clover and toad flax, whatever the hell that is, when they planted more stuff, the broader variety they planted, the better they did at eliminating the thistle. Science. Neat. maybe we can infer from that if you want to rehabilitate former farmland, you should plant a super wide range of stuff. On some of the plots sown with seeds of native plant species, soil from nearby land that had been taken out of production 20 years earlier was scattered to see what effect introducing nematodes, fungi, and other beneficial microorganisms associated with later stages of natural soil development might have on the process of native plant repopulation. I'm speculating that that was probably productive. I already know that the broader variety of plants I sowed, the better job they did of keeping the thistle away. So putting nematodes and fungi and other beneficial microorganisms as well, I would speculate, my hypothesis would be that those plots did better. And it says the seeds sown on these enriched plots have fared better than seeds sown on the unenriched plots, but still not as well as those growing naturally on the nearby land. Well, but that land, I think they're referring to the nearby land that had been taken out of production 20 years earlier. So we can take some of that dirt, put it on our plot. It does help that plot do better, but it still doesn't do as well as that native land is doing. And my reaction to that is, well, yeah, because you haven't farmed it for 20 years. So it's got a head start. Researchers have concluded that this is because fields farmed for many years are overrun with aggressive disease organisms, while, for example, beneficial mycorrhiza, what are those? Well, they're fungi that live symbiotically on plant roots and strengthen them against the effects of disease organisms, are lacking. So the land that was farmed 20 years ago, it started to recover. It's got more of this beneficial mycorrhiza living on the plant roots symbiotically and protecting them against disease. Those plots are doing better. And even if we transplant some of that dirt, that also helps. These preliminary results suggest that restoring natural plant diversity to overfarmed land hinges on restoring a natural balance of microorganisms in the soil. So you don't just want lots of species of plants, you also want diversity below ground. I get it. In other words, diversity underground fosters diversity above ground. Great. That's what I predicted. When you find them saying what you were already thinking, that means you're getting it. People who really struggle with reading comp aren't predicting what's going to come next. So try to make those predictions. It'll help you to recognize when you're actually doing it right. Researchers now believe that both kinds of diversity can be restored more quickly to damaged land if beneficial microorganisms are sown systematically into the soil, along with a wide variety of native plant seeds. I don't know why they needed to use the scare quotes there on sown. I'm willing to give them, yeah, you're sowing microorganisms in the ground. Anyway, what's the point of the passage? The point of the passage is if you're going to rehabilitate soil, rehabilitate old farmland, you want as much diversity as possible. You want beneficial organisms above the ground. You want to plant a wide diversity of species, but you also want to plant or sow below the ground to make sure that you have these beneficial fungi and mycorrhiza and all that stuff is. Notice I don't really know any of these details. I know where the details are. I could refer back to those if I needed their exact names or whatever. The main point of the passage, and if you were going to tell your niece what this passage was about, the main point that you would tell her is, well, if you're going to rehabilitate old farmland, you need a diversity of species, both above and below the ground. That's how you get nature to come back as quickly as possible. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to work on these questions. Good luck. All right, looks like we're having a bit of a Zoom fail, but that's okay. Can you just tell me in the chat which questions bothered you? I'm only going to do one or two of them, so speak up. Let me know which ones you struggled with. Okay, 27, obviously. Test 65, passage 4, number 27. Which one of the following is most analogous to the process described in the last paragraph by which the spread of thistles can be curtailed? Yeah, I think it's a main point question. I know it looks like it's an analogy question, and yeah, the correct answer is not going to be about thistles. But the main point of the passage is something that you have to keep at the top of your mind when you're answering all of the questions on the reading comp. Remember, they're testing whether you understood what you read. What did you read, especially in the last paragraph? Well, it says the preliminary results suggest that restoring natural plant diversity to overfarmed land hinges on restoring a natural balance of microorganisms in the soil. In other words, diversity underground fosters diversity above ground. Now, analogous just means similar. It's not going to be probably a similar topic. It's not going to probably be about agriculture, but it is probably going to be about diversity in multiple ways. I'd be looking for, well, if you want to revitalize a neighborhood, then you need a diversity of ages and races. Something like that would be perfect because it's the same idea in a different context. Got it? But I'm really looking for the echoes of the main point of the passage here, which was, yeah, you want as much diversity as you can get above and below ground in order to restore this old farmland. So the correct answer is going to say something like, well, to rehabilitate something, you need lots of different help, lots of a diversity of whatever is going to help you rehabilitate the neighborhood, for example. A says, a newspaper works to prevent Party A from winning a majority of seats in the legislature by publishing editorials encouraging that party's supporters to switch their allegiance and vote for candidates from a rival party. Okay, so instead of working to rehabilitate land, we're working to prevent Party A from winning a majority of seats in the legislature. How are we doing that? Well, we're going to publish editorials trying to get people to switch. Not sure what that has to do with a diversity of above and below ground stuff. B, a newspaper works to prevent Party A from winning a majority of seats in the legislature. So same situation, by publishing editorials defending candidates from a rival party against attacks by certain broadcast journalists. Ooh, I didn't predict it, but B has something going for it. The whole point of these fungi under the ground, the whole point of the mycorrhiza, it says, those are fungi that live symbiotically on plant roots and strengthen them against the effects of disease organisms. So just comparing A and B, which I'm not really in the business of comparing answers to one another, I didn't see anything in A that I liked. B is the same situation, but it does have not just editorials saying, hey, you should switch teams, but it has editorials that defend a candidate from attack, which has an echo of these mycorrhiza, which were defending plant roots from attack. I'm not going to hate picking B if I can eliminate C, D, and E. C says, a newspaper works to prevent Party A from winning a majority of seats in the legislature by publishing editorials intended to discourage supporters of Party A from voting. I like B best so far. You know, B's the only one that at least is defending from attack. D says a newspaper works to prevent Party A from winning a majority of seats in the legislature by publishing editorials attacking certain public figures who support candidates from Party A. That's offense instead of defense. That's not, I still like B best because B at least has defending our guy from attack. D, on the other hand, is like, well, let's go out and attack the other guy. E, a newspaper works to prevent party A from winning a majority of seats in the legislature by publishing editorials intended to create antagonism between two factions within that party. I just don't have anything analogous to that in the passage. You know, where is the like, it would have to have said mycorrhiza gets in there and it causes the disease organisms to attack themselves. That's not how it went down. The mycorrhiza was just defending against disease organisms. That's similar to how B says defend candidates from attacks by certain broadcast journalists. The best answer here, and it is a tough question, but the best answer here is B, because it's the only one that really has, okay, we're going to defend, we're going to succeed by defending against attack. That's my case for B. All right, we're going to move along now to logical reasoning because we're a little bit behind schedule, but I do want to give you guys a pitch for the ask button. When you click submit on question 27, you're going to see an ask button pop up on your screen. If not, you might need to expand your browser, but there is an ask button in the daemon, and boy, is it a killer feature of what we do at LSAT daemon. If you're ever not satisfied by my video, Ben's video, a written explanation, if one exists, if you're ever not satisfied by any of that, click the ask button and ask our team a question, and we will get back to you in writing within 24 hours. We're creating written explanations, if they don't already exist. We're creating written explanations for all of the logical reasoning and reading comprehension questions, in addition to tons and tons of videos for the games. So if you're ever stuck, we are here to help. All you got to do is hit the ask button. So if you struggled, and thank you guys, I see that some of you struggled with some of these other questions, just hit the ask button and we will get right back to you with that. All right, couple harder logical reasoning questions. I don't actually know that they're hard, but they are coming from later in the section. We've got a number 23 to start with here. Numbers 23 tend to be tougher, so we are going to start there. Please fill out the survey. Good luck. Test 65, section 4, number 23, a biologist says researchers believe that dogs are the descendants of domesticated wolves that were bred to be better companions for humans. I am fully willing to believe that my new dog was descended from a wolf. Not sure about the bred to be better companions for humans part. It has recently been found that some breeds of dog are much more closely related genetically to wolves than to most other breeds of dog. I mean, doesn't that like almost go without saying that some dogs would be closer related to wolves than other dogs? What about it? This shows, no, it doesn't. I'm extremely suspicious of conclusions on LSAT logical reasoning. I'm willing to grant them that researchers think dogs are descended from domesticated wolves. I'm willing to grant that some breeds of dog are much more closely related genetically to wolves than other breeds of dog are. But whatever they say now, this shows means this proves. And I'm willing to guarantee that they did not prove anything. I'm sure that they're about to try to lie to us. So my bullshit detector is turned all the way up here when I read this conclusion, which says, this shows that some dogs are descended from wolves that were domesticated much more recently than others. And my job is not to agree. I can see why they might reach that conclusion. If you're much more closely related, then yeah, maybe you descended yesterday from wolves. But where is your premise that says if you are more closely related genetically, then you were descended more recently? They have assumed that. They skipped that part. They went straight to their conclusion without first saying, well, studies show that if you're more closely genetically related, then you must have been descended more recently. They left that part out. They have assumed it. Which one of the following principles underlies the biologist's argument? Neat little trick about principle. Some of you who come from Khan Academy or other suspicious prep sources think that there is such a thing as a principle question. There's not. And I can actually prove it to you. You could cross out the word principles here, and it doesn't change the meaning of the question in the slightest. This question says, which one of the following underlies the biologist's argument? And I think my internet might have glitched here, but I'm going to complete my explanation. Which one of the following principles underlies the biologist's argument just means, hey, which one of these is part of the argument? And part of the argument here is if you are descended more recently, then if you are genetically more closely related, then you must have descended more recently. And that's just going to be the answer. A says, if one breed of dog is descended from wolves that were domesticated more recently than were the wolves from which most other breeds of dog are descended, which we don't even know that that's the case. That's their conclusion. That's not their evidence. That's their conclusion. So we're starting here with their conclusion. Then the former breed may be more closely related to wolves, but we know they're more closely related. So A doesn't do shit. I see that A is the most commonly chosen wrong answer here, but A's got it backward. It's got all the right words, but they're just in the wrong order. B says, if one breed of dog is more closely related to wolves than to another breed of dog, which they are, then the former breed of dog has more recent undomesticated wolf ancestors than the latter breed has, which is a complicated way of saying descended more recently. My prediction was, if you're more closely related, then you are descended more recently. That's what B means, and that's the answer. C, any breed of dog descended from wolves that were domesticated is more closely related genetically to at least some other breeds of dog. What? I thought all dogs were descended from wolves. Now we're bringing in new shit about dogs that weren't descended from wolves. I don't see how that helps prove this argument or how that's part of this argument. D, if one breed of dog is more closely related to wolves than another breed of dog is, then the former breed of dog is more closely related to wolves than to the latter breed of dog, which also isn't part of the argument. Okay. We know that these dogs are more closely related to wolves. We have no idea whether they're more closely related to wolves than to other dogs. That's not relevant. It's not what we were looking for. E, any two breeds of dog that are more closely related to each other than to wolves are both descended from wolves that were domesticated long ago. What now? Listen, they said some dogs are more closely genetically related, therefore they must have descended more recently. And in order to reach that conclusion, they had to assume that if a breed is more closely related to wolves than to another breed of dog, then it descended more recently, which is what B says, and that's why B is the answer here. Nicole, that's a good question, and I am sure that Claire and or Abigail will sort you out. If not, there's always the ask button, which will give you, and looks like maybe it's already there. Thank you, Jay. We've already written explanations for almost all of these questions, so you will find a wealth of resources. We got to keep it moving. So let's this final logical reasoning question and get right into a game. That's probably not the game. Can we skip that and go straight to the game, please? There we go. All right. Let me take a peek here. See if I can give you any kind of little cheat. Okay, it's a selection game. There's a lot of complexity here. We got 8 different kinds of food to choose from. We're going to pick 5 of the 8. By itself, that's not that hard, but the 8 are also divided up into subcategories. Could make it harder. It also could make it easier depending on how we approach the game. My eye goes to that third rule right away. When you see a big block that has to travel together, that's very frequently the best place to attack this game. And in real life, I think you would. In real life, if you were organizing this luncheon and it said, hey, you have to pick P and W or neither P nor W, I think you immediately would go, okay, well, if I've got P and W, then I've got P and W. If I don't, then I don't. And then let's think about how that affects the rest of my choices. I'm going to set this game up as an in-out game because I have a fixed number of spots. I'm selecting 5 for my in group, and I have 3 for my out group. And I would always start this game with a world where P and W are in and a world where P and W are out. If you just start there, you're on the verge of completely smashing this game. I'll give you 5 minutes or so to work on it. Good luck. All right, I think that's more than enough time if you're approaching the game correctly. And if you're not approaching it correctly, then I might as well go ahead and give you that correction right now. This is test 65, the third game. It's a selection game. I've got it set up on the board behind me as an in-out game. I use this kind of an approach when I have a fixed number of spots. It's a lot less useful if it said pick at least 5 out of the 8, then I wouldn't know that I have 5 spots in the in group and 3 spots in the out group. So in out becomes a lot less useful of a technique. I would not call this an in out game, by the way. I think it's more correct to refer to it as a game where I am solving it using an in-out technique. I think that's a lot smarter way to think about it. This isn't the only way to solve the game. It's not an in-out game. But I am gonna solve it this way. I'm gonna have an in group over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots are gonna be selected for the luncheon. Those are my in group. And then 1, 2, 3 spots that I'm not going to select. I'm going to call those the out group. And this is a very powerful technique, again, when I have a fixed number of spots, which I do here because it said I have to pick exactly 5 out of the 8. I've started here with 2 worlds, a world where, and it's based on the third rule. I'm ignoring everything. Notice, I like have freedom in the way I approach these games. I'm the boss of the game. So I've chosen where to start. I'm not slavishly writing down the first rule and then slavishly writing down the second rule. I'm looking for a solution, not a list of rules. I'm going to go for a solution. I'm going to solve the puzzle. And I think that that third rule is a really great place to start. If either P or W is selected, both must be selected. So I have a world where P and W are in. That's one set of solutions. And I have a world where P and W are out. That's the only other possible acceptable solution to the game. The purpose of making worlds, first of all, what are worlds? Worlds are just limited possibilities, limited avenues in order to solve the puzzle, right? So it's like a fork in the road. And if you were organizing this luncheon, you would recognize pretty clearly the fork in the road. You would look at your choices and you would go, well, I can either have P and W both, or I have neither P nor W. And then I think you could investigate the rest of your decisions from that point. For now, I get to forget about the PW rule. The purpose of making worlds is to eliminate rules. The PW rule can't be violated as long as every solution that I propose starts with either this or this. I can have them both, or I can leave them both out. There aren't any other solutions to the game. All right, where do I go from here? Well, I would love another rule that deals with either P or W. Unfortunately, I don't see another rule here that mentions P or W, so I have to look elsewhere. I know from experience, though, that right here is a bottleneck. I'm looking for bottlenecks. I'm looking for places where my choices get restricted. This is a great bottleneck because in the world where P and W are out, remember, I have to have 5 foods at my luncheon. So I'm looking around going, well, I can't take P and I can't take W. I have to pick 5 out of the remaining 6. There's only one more thing that I'm even allowed to leave out. And now my eye goes to the 5th rule. The last rule in this game says, hey, if N is selected, V can't be. Which means that if V is selected, N can't be. Which means this spot has to be N or V. Otherwise, I'm going to violate the rules of the game. If N is selected, V has to be out. well, then either N or V for sure is always out. That's true in this world as well. And I can go ahead and make a note of that. But if I select N, I can't select V. One of those out spots has to be reserved for N or V. Yep, Rachel, you got there before I did in the chat. Perfect. You're getting it. That's great. But the real magic is going to happen in this world. The world where P and W are out, N or V has to take the only remaining out spot, which means everybody else has to be in. So whoever hasn't been mentioned, that's F and G and O and T, they all have to be in. And then this spot would be the other one of N or V. Now let me run through all the remaining rules and make sure that this solution works. It's very specific, and in some cases, this solution would violate one of the other rules that I haven't even touched yet, in which case I would just X that out, the entire world. I would say, well, as it turns out, that doesn't even work. Let me check. Do I have at least one dessert? Those are F and G. Yeah, I've got 2 desserts. Do I have at least one main course? Those are N, O, and P. Yep, I've got O and maybe N. Do I have at least one side? Yes, I have T. Okay, how about hot foods? Hot foods are F, N, and T. Yep, I've got both F and T. 4th rule says if I have G, I have to have O, which I do. So this solution to the game, not only does it not violate any of the rules, but I don't even have to think about those rules. I've already checked them all, which means I can't break them, which means this is an acceptable solution no matter whether I pick V or N. Now let me see if I can attack up here. In the world where I have P and W, that doesn't really trigger anything, not at least not right off the bat. P and W, let's see, that's a main course and a side. So I don't yet have a dessert. That means I have to have either F or G for sure. If I have G, I have to have O. That's a rule that's still in play. I could very likely split this based on whether I do have G or don't have G. What about a hot food? Yeah, I don't yet have F or N or T. So I definitely need to have one of those. Sometimes I would probably split that world and go deeper into it. Other times, depending on my mood, I don't know. Other times I would say, hey, look, I've got 2 basic solutions. One of the solutions is totally completed. Up here, there's not that much to remember. I mean, I definitely need a dessert, but I've already taken up a spot for F or G as a dessert. The only rules that are remaining up here are if I have G, I have to have O, and I got to take a hot food. I might just leave that and then go tackle these questions. So let's see how I do. If you watch other videos from me or other videos from Ben, you're likely to see a totally different approach, and that's actually good. I want you to be improvising your solutions to these games. Number 12 is a list question. Notice that every answer just lists out all of the selections in the in group. All I have to do for this type of a question is a simple process of elimination. I'm going to look at P and W first. I either have both or neither. A has neither. B has both. C has both. Oops. D has just P but not W. So D's out. E has both. I have tested the rule that if I have P or W, I have to have both, and I have eliminated D. I'm going to take another rule now. I'll do the G one because that one looks easy to test. If G, you have to have O. I scan looking for G. I look at C and I see, hey, wait a second, I have G but not O. All the other answers are fine. So I would move on to another rule. N and V can't both be selected. That gets rid of A. Okay, now I got to dig in. Notice I tested the rules out of order there because some of the rules were very easy to test. It's harder to test. I have to have a hot food, although that's actually kind of easy. I have to for N or T. That gets rid of E. Careful. Don't just pick B without testing. There's a rule that we haven't tested. So I always want to, safety first here on these games. I want to make sure that I'm approaching the game correctly, understanding the rules and whatnot. So I am going to test the rule that says at least one dessert, at least one main, and at least one side must be selected. B, let's see, does it have a main? The mains are, oh wait, let me start with the desserts because that's how it started on the page. Does it have a dessert? F or G? Yes, it has F. Does it have a main? That's N, O, and P. Yes, it has both O and P. Does it have a side? Yes, it has T and W. I've tested all of the rules. I have eliminated A, C, D, and E. B has survived all of those rules. And so I'm 100% certain that the answer is B. It's critical that you're 100% certain when you pick answers on the logic games. The correct answers are objectively correct, and the wrong answers are objectively incorrect. B is the only one here that passes all of the rules. So, I mean, you could put a gun to my head and I'd be confident. Yeah, the answer is B. All right, next, I'm going to skip forward looking for the if questions. It's kind of a subtle thing. It's not make or break for anybody, but sometimes it's helpful to do the if questions first, and it never costs you anything. So that's why we do the if questions first. So number 13 does not start with the word if. Number 14 does start with the word if. If O is the only main course selected, which one of the following cannot be selected? Well, what are the other main courses? N and P. O. What do I know about P? P and W have to travel together. This is an example of how easy the test can actually be. If you make one inference, which, as I said earlier, an inference is just something that must be true, right? So follow the baby steps. There's only like 2 of them. If O is the only main course selected, then the other main courses are not selected. The other main courses are N and P. And if I don't pick P, then I can't pick W. And that's one of the answers, and that's the answer. Number 14 is E. That was 2 baby steps to predict the answer. Number 15 is another if question. It says, if F is not selected, which one of the following could be true? Okay, ooh, my worlds are gonna smash this one. In this world, I do have F. So to answer number 15, I have to be in this world. Not only that, but I would be in a version of the world where I have PWG. Let me write it down. If I would have gone deeper into my worlds, I would already have this on the board. And if you watch another video, you'll probably see me actually make that step before I get to this question. But I'm getting to the question now with, hey, if I don't have F, well, then I'm in this world where I have P and W and G. There's a rule that says if I have G, I have to have O. And let's see, that's a main and a side and a dessert. So that's sorted. I don't care about mains and sides and desserts anymore, but I do care about hot foods. Hot foods, F and N and T. Either N or T. The question says, which one of the following could be true? Can P be the only main course selected? Well, no, because O is a main. Can T be the only side selected? No, because can exactly two hot. The reason why I have to pick N or T here is because I don't have a hot food yet. So I'm going to have one, not two. Exactly three mains are selected. What were the mains again? N, O, and P. I already have O and P, and I could select N. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be the answer. Let me make sure that E won't work. Exactly three sides. Yeah, no way. I've got W, and I think T is a side. So I could have two, but I cannot have three. The answer for number 15 is D. Number 16, wow, a lot of if questions in this game. Number 16, if T and V are the only sides selected, which one of the following is a pair of foods be selected? So what happens when T and V are the only side? Simple, this one, okay? My worlds have already answered this question. If T and V are my only sides, then P and W have to be out because W is a side. So I'm in this world where I have F, G, O, and T. By the way, I might label them. F is a dessert, G is a dessert, O is a main, T is a side, and then I'm going to tick either V or N. I don't know which one. Which one of the following is a pair of foods, each of which must be selected? Well, it's going to be two out of these four. I mean, I know for sure I have F, G, O, and T. I would just scan these answers looking for a combination of F, G, O, and T. And there it is right off the bat. If I don't have W, then I have to have F and G. And my world's anticipated that question. All right, just one more here. Number 13, which one of the following is a pair of foods of which the organizer of the luncheon must select at least one? Looking at my worlds again, maybe I can anticipate this. The answer cannot be P or W because I know it's possible to leave both of them. They could both be in or they could both be out. So it's not, the answer is not P and W. It could be one or the other. In fact, I could anticipate a whole bunch of correct answers. I know that my solution has to be either here or here. And so in this world, I have P and W, and in this world, I have F, G, O, and T. What that means is I always have P or F, P or G, P or O, P or T. I also always have W or F, W or G, W or O, W or T. I've predicted 8 possible correct answers for this question, and I'm pretty sure one of them is the correct answer. I have P and W, I have P. And in the world where I have T. All right, Q&A.
So it appears that maybe Nathan's Wi-Fi just went out, which is interesting. That's the beauty of online school sometimes. We've all been there. Oh, he's back. Okay. Hopefully we're all good now.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. My internet is glitching out today. Maybe my dog ate a cord. That would be highly possible. I'm going to go. Do we have any questions before we wrap it? Maybe my internet, my glitches. I'm going to go fix all that. I will talk to you guys later. I do have class later today, so I'll see some of you back for another version of this exact class tonight. Bye.
Abigail, did you get any of my questions in the chat?
No, I haven't seen any DMs from you, not since the beginning of class. Did you have any other questions? You can feel free to ask them now if you'd like.
No, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And as always, guys, if you do have any remaining questions, hit the ask button or reach out to us at help@lsatdemon.com. I'll put it in the chat as well, but that's always a great resource. We'll put you in the right direction.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for coming.